Namaste. Welcome to this session. We are considering the category of Drusya. We are trying to understand the metaphysics of Prakriti, the concept of Prakriti. And therein we came to a very interesting question. We were dealing with that Sutra 2.18, and the purpose of Prakriti is for Bhoga Apavargathata of purusha. And we were trying to understand what is Bhoga and what is Apavarga. Then we came across a very challenging question, a critical mind asking this question to Sankhya Yoga philosophers, Sankhya tanjalas. It is like this. Bhoga and Apavarga are declared to be purusharthas, the two purposes of Purusha-tattva. There are two purposes for purusha. The question is there really a purpose for purusha? Because the purusha metaphysically is described as nishkriya tattva, chinmatra tattva, and as metaphysics tells us, it is not only unborn and deathless and immutable, etc., etc. It is even non-doer. It is even non-knower. It is even non-endurer. So the bhoktritvam is not there, jnatritvam is not there, kartritvam is not there, and all that is because of he being substrate. So the question is, on one hand, you say that Purusha Tattva is pure consciousness, Chinmatra, Drashta Drushimatraha. Will be the description of Purusha which will come later. While the Drashta is being concerned, Drashta is being discussed, because the Drashta and Drusha are two categories. The conjunction of the two is causing the cause of pain, sorrow, first and original cause of sorrow. And therefore we are seeing the Drusya category, and of course Drashta category will be also described, and we also already have tried to delve into the Purusha Tattva, the Atma Tattva, metaphysics of Atma Tattva. That it is without any delimitation, it is noumenal, it has no form, it has no color, it has no shape, it has no caste, class, creed, gender, status, stature, condition, etc. It is only pure consciousness. Chinmatra. So, the question is, if the Purusha Tattva is Chinmatra, how can be the admission of the fact that the Bhogas are for Purusha? How the Bhogas, how the Bhog can happen to Purusha? How can there be a Bhog for Purusha Tattva? So, there can be no Bhogam for Purusha. So, therefore, the Bhoga cannot be Purushartha. It cannot be a purpose. The Prakriti cannot be of purpose to Purusha, because Purusha has nothing to have, nothing to get, nothing to gain, nothing to lose. It has no desire, no aspiration, no wants. So, how to accept that the Bhoga is admitted as Purusharthata? And on the other hand, the Buddhi, the Buddhitattva itself is Drusya Tattva, itself is Prakriti. So therefore it is insentient. Now if the Buddhi essentially is Prakriti, That means it is actually Drushya. It is Drushya category as categorized by Patanjalas, with which we are dealing now. So, the Bhojya itself cannot become Bhokta. If it is a Bhojya tattva, it itself cannot be a Bhokta. So the Bhoktritvam cannot come even in Buddhi. The Bhoktritvam cannot come even in Purusha. Then how the Bhoga has been considered as a Purushartha? So it's quite a critical question. Like a Bhojya cannot be Bhokta. Like food is to be eaten. The food itself is not eating itself. Here it comes to a position, the postulation brings a position that the Buddhi itself is Bhojya and Buddhi itself therefore cannot be Bhokta. So you cannot say that the Prakriti itself is Bhokta and the Prakriti itself is Bhojya. So this is how it's a very difficult, critical question. See, when we are hungry, we eat food. When we are hungry, we don't eat our own part of the body. We don't bite our finger and eat our finger because we are hungry. So what is eaten should be different than the eater. And therefore, neither the Buddhi can be Bhokta nor Purusha can be Bhokta because of the postulation, metaphysical position that you have taken that Purusha doesn't eat. Purusha is not eaten. Like Bhagavad Gita tells, it cannot be killed, it neither kills. Kathopanishad also endorses to this view that it cannot be killed, it cannot be killing. So, that is called Atmashraya dosha. If you believe that I am hungry and therefore I will eat. So that is called Atmashraya dosha in philosophical argumentations. If the child is tired of walking, the father will mount the child over the shoulders and walk the remaining distance. If you are tired of walking, you will take a vehicle and go to the remaining of distance. You will travel remaining of distance in a vehicle. But there is no way that if you are tired and therefore you will mount yourself on your own shoulders and you will walk. Somebody else can be mounting on your shoulders and then therefore the tired legs will have the facility to be walking the distance without getting further tired. So the child will be mounted on the shoulders, the child cannot be walking now. So it can be mounted on the shoulders, but if you are tired, you don't mount on your own shoulders. You'll have to mount on somebody else's shoulders. That is the Atmashraya dosha. And this defect seems to be appearing in the postulations of Patanjalas. On one hand, they say the Purusha tattva doesn't do anything. If he doesn't do anything, how can the Purusha tattva get the experience? So, there is a defect in the postulations of Patanjalas that the Bhoga Apavarga, they can neither say that they are in Buddhi nor they are comfortably, logically able to mention that in Purusha Tattva. And whatever arguments might be presented, yet it won't be sound. So, the point is, that is not the case. The Patanjalas have handled this particular tangle very, very, very successfully and very, very convincingly. And not that we have overlooked this problem. The Patanjalas have not overlooked the problem, they have not just taken a bypass. They have certainly considered this problem. And this is how Vyasa presents this prima facie view and this critical problem. Tavaitau Bhoga Apavargau Buddhikruto Buddhyaveva Vartamanau Katham Purusham Vyapadishyateti. So, yes, no doubt, the Purusharthas Bhoga Apavarga are in Buddhi. There is no doubt about it. We are not accepting it. We are not rejecting. We are postulating, as a matter of fact, that Bhoga and Apavarga both are in Buddhitattva. And there is no illogicality in holding that they are not in Purusha because of the metaphysical status. And we also are mentioning, therefore, the same in Buddhi. And therefore, we are taking the position that precisely, essentially, Bhoga and Apavarga both are in Buddhi. We are not mentioning them in Purusha. The Purusha is immutable principle, because whenever there is Bhoga, there is a mutation. Happiness, sadness, sorrowfulness, delightfulness. If these are mentioned in Purusha, that means the Purusha itself will be having so many faces. That means the Purusha is mutable principle, and we are not mentioning all those in Purusha. We are mentioning all that in Buddhi. So therefore Vyasa says, Taveto Bhoga Apavargau Buddhikruto Buddhyaveva Vartamanau Katham Purusham Vyapadishyate iti. So he himself is presenting a question, how it is mentioned in Purusha, Vritti Sarupyam Itaratra, or the Bhogam which we have defined. We have seen the definition of Bhoga in the last session. So, they are mentioned in Purusha. We are not saying that they happen in Purusha, they are mentioned in Purusha. How then it is getting mentioned in Purusha Tattva? So Bhashyakar himself is now commencing to answer this prima facie view. So how does he commence? Yatha vijayaha parajayo va yodhrusho vartamanaha swamini vyapadishyate sahi tatphalasya bhokta iti. And this example Vyasa has beautifully brought in. He says, suppose there are two kingdoms, and the two kingdoms means every chance they will be battling with each other, because they will be feeling like conquering each other. Now, if there is a battle between the two kingdoms, that means battle in two kings. Actually, the battle is waged by whom on the battlefield? So there are the armies of two kings. The armies of the two kings are engaged in the battle on the battlefield, while the kings of respective kingdoms will be sitting on a throne in a palace. They may not be actually involved. They will not be coming even on the battlefield. So the armies of the two kingdoms will be fighting the battle, and then one of them will be victorious, the other one will be defeated. One of them will be conquered, the other one will be conquering. So one will be declared victorious, while the other one will be declared as defeated. So the victory and defeat is actually of the armies. The two armies, one of them is victorious, the other army is defeated, conquered. But it is mentioned and attributed to the kings of respective states. Or in the field of sports, in an international event, we say it is international event between country A and country B. They are fighting the battle, they are playing the game, and one of them is victorious, the other one is conquered. So we end up saying this country is lost and that country has won. Actually, the country has not lost, or country has not won. The country with all its subjects are in their respective regions, but they are represented by the team members and the representatives of the country. One of them has lost, one of them has gained or won, and therefore a team has won, a team has lost, but attributed to the whole country, that this country has lost and that country is won. So we know this in the sports event when there are international tournaments. So also in the battlefield, that example Vyasa had given, the two kings have not fought the battles. They were perhaps on the throne in their own respective palaces. But the armies have fought, one of them victorious, one of them defeated, one of them conquered, one of them victorious. But then they are attributed to not to army as much as attributed to the kings, that this king has won and that king has lost. So the Jaya Parajaya, the loss and gain or victory and defeat, is attributed to the masters, the kings. Now similar is the case here. Actually it is Buddhitattva, the Buddhitattva, which is getting Bhoga or Apavarga. But because it is related to the Purusha Tattva, therefore Patanjali has also taken this position and mentioned this position. The Purusha Tattva is Swami, and the rest of his things which are Prakrutika, which are of Prakriti, they are his. They are not he, they are his. Like we say, this is my body and this is my mind. The me is different than the mine. The me is different than the mine. So similarly, the Swami and Swa, this is the relationship between Prakriti and Purusha, and that is the samyoga. When there is a samyoga between Prakriti and Purusha, there is Swam Prakriti related to that Purusha, each individual Purusha. So I have my body, my mind. Your body and your mind doesn't become my body and my mind. Yourself within you has the mastership over your body and your mind. So it becomes your belonging. Your body, minds are your belongings, and my body and mind are my belongings. My body, mind, senses are my belongings. Your body, mind, senses are your belongings. So the relationship of the nature of me and mine is established. So relationship of the nature of the I and mine is established. So anything that the mind gets or loses is loss or gain attributed to me. Because I am the master of mine. As you are the master of yours, I am the master of mine. And then mine includes Buddhitattva onwards, everything up to gross body and gross mind. So there is this relationship of the nature of possessed. So the possessed Buddhi is actually getting Bhoga Apavarga according to the stand of Patanjalas and Sankhyas. That it is the Bhoga Apavarga is actually happening in Buddhi, Buddhitattva, Buddhisattva and Prakriti. But because it is attached to that purusha individual, in that embodiment, who is the Swami, and therefore the possessed is the Swa, the mind, anything that happens to Swa is attributed to Purusha. So this is our standpoint, that Bhoga Apavarga are actually in Buddhi, of Buddhi, but because the Buddhisattva is attached to that respective Purusha Tattva, it gets attributed to Purusha Tattva. So that is how our position is quite clear. Without any compromise anywhere, we hold to the position the Purusha is Chinmatra. And we don't compromise there at all. So Vyasa says, Evam bandhamokshau buddhaveva vartamanau purushe vyapadishyete sahi tat phalasya bhokta. Like the sorrow or delight of the kings who have either lost or won. One who has won the battle is delighted. One who has lost the battle is sorrowed. Now, who fought the battle? Army fought the battle. Who lost the battle? Army lost the battle. Who won the battle? Army won the battle. But the delight came to kings. Sorrow came to kings. Similarly here, the attribution of it is to Purusha, therefore sahi tat phalasya bhokta. Therefore it is said that Purusha Tattva is Bhokta. He is seemingly a Bhokta. Jnanam comes to Buddhi, but then it gets attributed to Purusha Tattva. Kartrutvam is by Buddhi, but gets attributed to Purusha. Because that is, Buddhi is his swa, it is his possession. Like if an innocent child has committed some damage or some loss or some sin, the parents are held responsible because they are guardians. So, like parents have to take responsibility for what the children do, similarly, it happens to the Purusha here in a seeming condition because they are attached to Purusha. That Buddhi and Prakriti, the entire Buddhi, Manas, Ahankar, Indriyas, body, they are all possessions of the Purusha Tattva who is immanently within. And therefore, sahi tat phalasya bhokta, in the sense the seeming bhoktrutvam, seeming kartrutvam, seeming jnatrutvam is all in Purusha. He is substrate. So this is the position of Patanjala. So therefore there is nothing compromised and there is nothing confusing and there is nothing faulty in the postulations which is taking place in Sankhya, Patanjala metaphysics. So even Bandha Moksha is to Buddhi, because the Shuddhatma is ever Mukta. There is nothing like Mukti or so also Bandha. Purusha is always in a transcendent state. There is neither a condition like Bandha or Moksha, and therefore all the Bandha Moksha comes to Buddhi. In the Atmashtakam of Sri Adi Shankaracharya, you come across this. Bandha moksho kuto me. Perfect. Neither there is bandha nor there is moksha. But that is there in the Buddhitattva. And the Buddhi is attached to that Purusha Tattva. And therefore, seemingly, that bandha moksha is pointed out in Purusha. So this is what is the position of Patanjalas here about Bhoga Apavargartham as Purushartha. The Purusha doesn't need moksha, nor Purusha wants to be free from bandha, because he is neither in bandha avastha nor moksha avastha. All the bandha mokshas are only in Buddhi, which is actually bhasamana chaitanyam. And we have seen this metaphysical phenomenon right from beginning of the treatise of Patanjalas, vritti sarupyam itaratra. So it is a psychological phenomenon that because of proximity of Buddhi with that Purusha, like iron particles and a magnet with a magnetic field, within the magnetic field they become magnetic. Iron ball becoming fireball, it is because of fire that the black opaque ball becomes red translucent fireball. So is the Buddhitattva. Because of proximity with that Purusha, it becomes seemingly conscious. And when it becomes seemingly conscious, it gets Bandha Moksha. When it gets Bandha Moksha, it gets Bhoga Apavarga. When it gets Bhoga Apavarga, it is attributed to Purusha. So this is a very clear position of Patanjalas, and there is no compromise at all, and there is no confusion as well. So that's how the seemingly formidable question is answered by the Patanjalas. So finally, the point is the Bhoga Apavarga are all in Buddhi. And they are all happening because of the Guna Vyapara. And if the Purushartha is unaccomplished, Parama Purushartha is unaccomplished, or Purushartha even is unaccomplished, the contact and conjunction is bound to be there. As long as there is purpose, that either there is Bhoga or there has to be Apavarga, then the conjunction is going to continue. And as long as it is inconclusive, the purposiveness is inconclusive, purpose is not concluded, that is Bhoga. So, Tadartha Avasaya is Purushartha Prapti, Moksha. And when there is Moksha, there is no basis for conjunctions. When there is no basis for conjunction, there is disjunction. When there is disjunction, there is that Atma in its pristine state. That's the Kaivalyam. The point is, until that time, all the Buddhi Vyaparas are going to be attributed into Purusha Tattva. Like all that children do, it will be attributed to their parents. Or all that the possessed does is attributed to possessor. All that the army of the king does, it is attributed to king. It is the army which loses or wins the battle, but attributed to king, that lost or won. That's how it is. Swaswami Sambandham is what will solve the problem of the questioner. So that's how this problem has been tackled. Now, this Buddhi, which is representing that respective purusha tattva, is very, 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 very versatile. Very versatile. It does, it gets, it gives, it knows, it doesn't know. So all that gnyatrutvam, agnatrutvam, gnatvam, agnatvam, prapti, aprapti, gaining, losing, all that is in Buddhi, which is in proximity with the Purusha. Buddhi essentially doesn't have all those things. But because of proximity with the Purusha Tattva, there is this condition appearing, like iron particles become magnetic as long as they are in magnetic field of that magnet, or the iron ball and fireball instance that we were repeatedly citing. But this Buddhi is really a fabulous and marvelous thing, particularly from the point of view of Jnana Mimamsa. So Bhashyakara proceeds to mention the potentials of this Bhasamana Chaitanyam, the Buddhitattvam, which has charged animation, which has transmitted animation into it. It really plays a fabulous role. Otherwise, it is inert. It is something that cannot be knowing, cannot be experiencing, cannot be feeling, cannot be sensing. But it starts working like Chaitanya Tattva by being Bhasamana Chaitanya, by being seemingly conscious. It performs all the acts of the conscious. So Vyasa tells us what this marvelous Buddhi is. Etena grahana dharana uha apoha tattva jnana abhinivesha buddhau vartamanaha purushe adhyarupit sadbhavaha. So all that Buddhi does, the purusha is held responsible, because it is his Buddhi. It is his swa. Whatever the Buddhi does, positive, negative, constructive, destructive, praiseworthy, or dubious acts, everything is attributed to Purusha Tattva, because it is his possessed. It is his swa. So these are the acts: grahana, dharana, uha, apoha, tattva, jnana, abhinivesha. He shortlists them. We shortlist these functions. Otherwise, you know what all you can be doing, and you are doing, and you may be doing, and you should be doing, and you must be doing, and you can be doing. All that is attributed to Purusha Tattva, because the Buddhi is belonging to that Purusha. So, Vyasa has shortlisted, and let's try to understand what is this shortlist. Grahana. Grahana means the act of jnana karmendriyas in lively conditions. Because under the presidency of prana, the jnana karmendriyas will work. So all those activities of jnana karmendriyas are classed as grahana. Hearing. Atma doesn't hear, but Atma is said to be hearer. Seeing. Atma doesn't see, but the seer is said to be Atma. Atma doesn't taste, but The taster is said to be Atma. So all those get attached to Purusha Tattva because of the metapsychological phenomenon of this avidya. So that is mentioned by Grahana. What Jnanendriyas do, what Karmendriyas do, what Sharirendriyas do, because of prana, all that samvit, samvedana, jnanam. So, all that is act of buddhi actually. So also, the Jnane Karmendriyas functioning give us delight, sorrow, pain, pleasure, bodha, knowledge, etc. Or memory, recognition, imagination, creativity, all that happens in Buddhitattva. It's a marvelous, marvelous agency once it is charged with virtual animation. So that is mentioned by Grahana. So there is a long list in the belly of Grahanam which you can decipher and open out. So all those experiences which come to us by mind as an organ, by 5 Jnanendriyas and by 5 Karmendriyas, all that is Grahanam. Then the second one is Dharana. So because of what we experience through the Grahana act, Pratyaksha, Anumana, etc. So Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama will give us some knowledge. So knowledge actually comes to Buddhi. Perception, cognition, sensation come to Buddhitattva. So all that which comes, all that gets transformed into samskaras. They all create impressions, form impressions. So that becomes something which is retained. Because they create impression in us. It is not that previous moment goes into our oblivion and now we are blank state for next moment. And all that in preceding moments have taken place, they are somewhere stored, somewhere impressed. So that's the samskar aspect. So all those experiences don't just come and go, they come and stay. And that too from life after life after life. Not that they go out or get obliterated at the end of the life. No, they transmigrate from life after life and life to life. They go on transmigrating. So they stay. They stay means not for a lifetime, but even longer than lifetime. That is called dharana. Then, also because of all these experiences that we get through Jnana Karmendriyas, what happens is called uha. We just now saw that something happens is called samskara, that they become impressions and then stay with us. They don't leave us. So also, with Grahana, something else happens which is called uha. They are held in memory cortex. Sruti Kosha. And when sometimes the memory which comes on surface, that is called uha. It's not that it is maintained in memory. Memories surface and desurface. They appear, they disappear. This is what happens to memory. So, there are also mnemonic efforts to get the memory, which we have it. And you are all aware of this. The mnemonic techniques. You have the memory, you don't have it, how to get it, how to tap it. So this is called uha. The impressions also stay in the form of memory. Some of them stay in the form of memory, and then the memory can be gotten. There are ways to trigger the memories. That is called uha. That is also what Buddhi does. It does that as well. Then apoha. So whatever has been brought on the subject as uha, whatever memory has been surfaced for the mind to ponder over, think over, and then have it in the anvil of thoughts, then we try to think that this is something rejectable, this should be discarded, this should be maintained. And that is called apoha. And therefore in vernacular we have a wonderful word for a deliberation on a thing called uhapoha. So get the memories, impressions, get them on the anvil, have the microscopic view of them, and decide what is to be set aside, what is rejectable, what is acceptable. Weed out, try to weed out from our thought process. So thoughts come to our mind, but then we also weed out something, and we say, no, this is not what I should be thinking. Let me not think on this, let me think on this, let me think this way and not that way. So this is called uhapoha, how to think. It's a wonderful term in vernacular called uha-apoha, and uhapoha is a conjoint word based on uha and apoha. So Vyasa tells us about these two functions, namely uha followed by apoha. Then tattva jnana. So the uhapoha brings factors for reasoning, and then we are able to draw conclusions. After weeded out what is not needed, we come to get a matter to draw a conclusion that this is this and this cannot be that. So this is how we come to determinate condition in our thought process. So after deliberations, we come to a phase of conclusion. And that is called tattva jnanam. And in tattva jnanam, we say this is this and this is not that. That is that and that is not this. So the conclusions are drawn, such as go tvam, this is a cow. There is cowness in this cow, therefore this is cow. Manushyatvam, humanness. This is humanness, and this humanness is here, therefore this is humanness. Manushyatvam, dhatutvam, jalatvam. So that's why this is the tattva jnana comes in this sense. Jalatva, agnitva, manushyatva, gotva, marjaratva, shwanatva. So when we have a determinate knowledge, definite knowledge, conviction about it, then we come to say this is this. And then we start characterizing that this is man, this is cow, this is dog, this is cat. So definitive knowledge, not indecisive knowledge, but definitive knowledge is called tattva jnana. And the tattva prefix has come here to jnana because of the gotva, manushyatva, dhatutva, jalatva, bharatiyatva. So these are the suffixes. And suffixes tell us something definite about something. And therefore the tattva has come. So that's the tattva jnana, which is the fifth of the shortlisted functions of the buddhi. And then abhinivesha. And then out of determinate knowledge, we start getting some kind of asmita. And we start doing something with that thing. Once we know that this is a man, this is a human being, we start handling that as a human being. When we know that this is dog, we start handling it as a dog. When we know that this is a cow, we start handling it as a cow. We treat it as a cow, handle it as a cow. So our pravrutti nivrutti starts shaping up. So it's a gotvam. When we know it is cowness and this is the cow and there is cowness, we go closer. But when there is simmatva, vyagratva, we don't go closer, we go away. So this pravrutti nivrutti, our activities start shaping up. Whether to go closer or not to go closer, and what to do with this and what not to do with this, how to handle this and how not to handle this. So our pravrutti nivrutti, kartavya, nishchaya is evolved. And that is called abhinivesha. Not to mistake with the klesha abhinivesha. So this is a technical term here again. So Vyasa beautifully describes and shortlists marvelous functions of buddhi. So in that quuplet that he has mentioned, he has given invaluable information about Buddhitattvam. It is all that the buddhi itself is doing and all that gets attributed to purusha. So, in the Shastra, the grahana, dharana, etc. have been mentioned, described as, which is again interesting for students of yoga philosophy. Sarvamatrena arthajnanam grahanam. Arthajnanam, just we know the knowledge, get the knowledge about the objects. Sarvamatrena arthajnanam grahanam, tatra smriti dharanam. So with reference to that experience, we also develop some memories. So tatra smriti dharanam, tadgatanam visheshanam uhanam uhaha. So with that, we start having matter for deliberation and thought. And we start thinking over it. That is uham. Samaropitanam cha yukta apanayo apoha tabhyam eva apohabhyam. And then, as I said, we try to weed out the analysis, the thought process. We start analyzing. And then we say, this is to be weeded out. This is to be set aside. And we start going for a process to arrive at something definitive. So that is called apoha. Tattva avadharana purvam hanopadanam jnanam. And then deciding quite definitely whether something is hanam or what is useful for hanam and what has to be weeded out, which is bhogam. So when that is taking place, that is tattva jnanam, and then pravrutti nivrutti, which is abhinivesha. That this is bhogatmak, so let me not go close to it. Let me go away from it. This is apavargathatmak. Let me go closer to it and not go away from it. So that is pravrutti nivrutti, which is abhinivesha. This is how he has explained it. And what I just now related to you is what is described by Vachaspati Mishra in his Tattva Vaisharadi. Vartikara also has undertaken this process. So he says, Grahanam Swarupa Matrena Arthajnanam Dharana Chintanam Uho Arthagata Visheshanam Vitarkanam Apoha Vitarkita Madhye Vicharataha Kriyata Nirakaranam Tattvajnanam Vitarkita Madhye Eva Vicharataha Kriyat Vishesha Avadharanam Abhiniveshaha Tadakarata Patti. So he has also described it in his own language and in a different way, of course. So these are all innumerable functions of the Buddhi. From aviveka to viveka, it is the Buddhi which carries out all actions. Taking it to the unfathomable depths of avivekam, it is Buddhi. And then make us scale the heights, unfathomable heights of viveka, is also Buddhi. You can understand what is the range of its functions. Enormous range of functions in which it works. So point is, now if you look at all this, what we just now discussed, don't lose the sight that this is the wisdom of the Lord. It seems to be a very modern thought process. It seems to be very, very ultra-modern thought process. But it is as old as civilization. So various acts such as perception, retention, judgment, rejection, knowledge of realities and distinction with unessentials, all this seems to be a modern process of thinking. But this is what we get in Patanjali's Darshana. Vyasa has so lucidly described all these functions. So that's a great marvel. Seems to be ultra-modern postulation, but it is age-old postulation. The point is, all these buddhi vyaparas are imposed on that purusha. And therefore, he seems to be a bhokta. He seems to be a bhokta. The buddhi is seemingly conscious, and therefore the purusha becomes seemingly the bhokta. That is the condition, which actually is in reality. And therefore, he finally makes a statement, emphatic statement, Sahi tat phalasya bhokta. The purusha therefore becomes bhokta, although not the bhokta, yet bhokta. So those who are not used to Sankhya, Patanjala's philosophical systems, for them it should be told that about kartrutva and bhoktrutva, which really will be harassing that neophyte person in Adhyatma, whether I am really the doer or not doer. So that's why one needs to get oriented to the Sankhya Patanjala postulation which has come so far. Otherwise, on one hand we say I am the doer, I have done. On the other hand, philosophy says you are not the doer. So it is quite confounding if you do not understand the underlying postulations, underlying descriptions behind such postulations. So, and that is why in very simple words you will get in Bhagavad Gita these things. The Bhagavad Gita says, na karoti na lipyate. About Purusha, na karoti na lipyate. Neither does he do, nor the things get attached to him. The effects of the acts don't get stuck to him. Na lipyate. So, na karoti na lipyate. So also elsewhere, Bhagavad Gita says, naiva kinchin karomi. Asango hi ayam purushaha. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Asango hi ayam purushaha. And Yoga Sutra says, Purushasya aparanamitvat. So these are all metaphysical statuses, which even Bhagavad Gita endorses, Upanishads endorse, the Shastras endorse, Sankhya Shastra endorses, postulates, Patanjalas are postulating. So, at the same time, same Shastras also accept that they are all imposed on Purusha. Therefore, there is Dharma Shastra. You can't escape saying that, well, I am essentially not the doer, so why should I be penalized for this? Dharma Shastra says, no, you have to take the penalizations, you will have to pay, you will have to have atonement, expiations, etc., prayaschittadi, etc., the phalabhoktrutam, the phalabhoga, all that has to be had. And therefore, the Bhagavad Gita on one hand says, na karoti na lipyate. On the other hand, Bhagavad Gita itself says, Purusha sukha dukkhanam bhoktrutve heturuchyate. 13th chapter, 20th verse. Purusha sukha dukkhanam bhoktrutve heturuchyate. The Purusha is the cause for sukha dukkhas. So on one hand abhokta, on the other hand bhokta. So such postulations have come in all adhyatmic granthas, paramarthik granthas, Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. They say you don't do anything, at the same time they say you do all that you have done. And you will have to pay for it. You will have to face the consequences. So that we have seen in our Karma Siddhanta. Anyway, the Purusha Bhoktrutvam has been quite a debate evoking postulation of Sankhya Shastra, or for that matter even metaphysics. Because the Purusha doesn't have any Bhoga, and all the Bhogas are of the Prakriti. Then, if that is the case, then karma kartru dosha will come, or kartru karma dosha will come, which we saw that you can't mount on your own shoulders because your legs are tired. So, and therefore, very proper, clear postulations do come in Shastras. We need to look into Shastras, dip into Shastras, then there won't be confusion. So whether I am responsible for what I do? Yes. And also no. This is how the things are. And therefore there is some mysticism in this life. If you get to know the realities of the life, you will realize that there is mysticism in it. So that is how the Bhogarthata and Apavargathata have been considered, which is the last part of the sutra. And as a reminder, let me tell you, even in Sankhya Sutra 1.104, Chid Avasano Bhogaha, the Bhoga has been even defined in Sankhya Sutra. So it's marvel to really delve into the Upanishadic treatises and the metaphysical treatises, metaphysical postulations. And when the Bhoga happens to Purusha in a seeming condition, that also Sankhya Sutra sums up in beautiful aphorism, just two worded, 2.35, Kusumavachamanihi. Like a crystal, the crystal is colorless, but the substrate has color, it gets colored. Substrate has shape, it gets a shape. That's the Kusumavachamani Sutra, and we have seen this phenomenon while dealing with Yoga Sutra so far. So, with that, we almost come to the end of subject matter of this sutra. So let us take some allied aspects to this sutra, but that is in our next session. Namaskar, all of you.